Hello everyone and welcome back to Age of Nagash, which is a channel dedicated to Age of Sigmar, and in this video it's going to be continuing with my long in depth Ossiarch Bonereaper army series, and in this one it's going to be part 2 and we'll be looking at sub-allegiances. So I know there's been a little bit of a time in between this one and part 1, which was about allegiance abilities, and that's basically just because simply Games Workshop chucked loads of news at us. When I've been covering it, I haven't been able to do this as well. So hopefully we'll be able to catch up on it now. So in part 2, like I say, we'll be going over their sub-allegiances. And you may not know what a sub-allegiance is. I will be doing a video soon on sub-allegiances and allegiances themselves in my How to Play Age of Sigmar series, which will be better explained there. But essentially, once you've picked your army, which is basically an allegiance, so once you've picked Ossiarch Bonereapers, you are Allegiance Ossiarch Bonereapers. And what that means then is that Ossiarch Bonereapers has access to what they call Ossiarch Bonereaper Legions, which turn out to be sub-allegiances. Many books have different ones. Look at Flesh Eater Courts, they have Grand Courts. If you look at Stormcast, they have Storm Hosts, etc. So the ones we're going to be looking at today, these are all the ones at the date of recording, which is the 14th of the 3rd, 2021. So it's going to be Mortis Praetorians, Petrifex Elite, then it's going to be Staniac Lords, Ivory Host, and then we'll look at Null, Myriad and Crematorians. So that is a total of 6 sub-allegiances, which to be honest isn't bad out there. There's not too many armies that actually have more sub-allegiances than that. We'll also be talking a little bit about the lore before we go into the sub-allegiances. Not loads in depth lore. If you want to find out more lore about Ossiarch Bonereapers, go check out the lore video I did for them. But just a little bit of enough to make you realise how these guys stand out from the rest of the Ossiarch Bonereapers. Also, if you're still wondering why you play Ossiarch Bonereapers, go check out that video as well. As I know myself, as I'm looking for videos on YouTube, I may be watching an army video, wanting to know why should I play it. I've done a video just dedicated for that, so go check that out if you would like to. So the last thing I want to say before we get into the meats and bones of this video is going to be a massive and a huge shout out to my absolutely fantastic patrons and YouTube members who, because of them, I can continue to make videos about Warhammer and Age of Sigmar and to try and help people get into our hobby, which we all know is fantastic, and to try and help people continue their journey throughout Warhammer. So my patrons and YouTube members are going to be firstly my Morgasts, who they are my top supporters, and the amount of help they give the channel really goes a huge way. So this is going to be Johnathan H, Filq, Bleed Red and Christopher G. Thank you so much for your continued support. You're all beautiful in my eyes and please keep it up. It's making a huge difference, like I said. And then my vampires, which are Mir, Martin S, Rouse321, David A, Ronni H, Doug P and SpareBear as well. Guys, at that tier, it really makes a huge difference. Thank you so much for your help, and it really generally does keep me going doing these videos. And then my Necromancers, which are Jacq.l, RadiationRiley, AW77, Die Sagas, WolfNick, Michal W, Quad, Cranky Wombat, Christopher F, Christopher C, James S, and Steve T. Again, guys, thank you so much as well for your collective support there. And if you would like to become one of these amazing people, click the join button next to the subscribe button you'll see below the video, or go check out the link to my Patreon on the top of the description down below. But we can get into all of that later, because right now we're going to start with Mortis Praetorians. So this is like the most well-known Ossiarch Bonereaper Legion, and it's the one that name characters belong to, which are Arch, Cavaliers, Xantos, and of course the big man himself, Catacross, the Mortarch of the Necropolis. So they do particularly well in this one, just to give you a heads up. And then starting with their lore, so the first amongst all of their kind, the Mortis Praetorians are the Legion of Othrian Catacross himself. They are the most pitiless effective of all of the Ossiarch legions, driven by a commemorative military insight of the finest war leaders in Shyish. In the wake of each successful invasion are raised monuments to the immortal glory of Nagash. And then going into the rules, so the first one we're going to look at is the standard ability which this legion gets. You'll see that all of these legions, bracket sub-allegiances, basically get a ability, and then they get a command ability, command trait, and artifact of power. It's something again we see in a lot of army sub-allegiances. So the ability that you'll get for the Mortis Praetorians is called the Dread Legion. Enemies know that any attempt to resist the Mortis Praetorians is doomed to fail. Subtract 1 from the bravery characteristic of enemy units while they are within 12 inches of any friendly Mortis Praetorian units. So we have already mentioned sort of like bravery stacking buffs and all that sort of thing in the Ossiarch Bonereapers, but -1 might not sound like a lot, right? But there are easy ways to stack it. Like, I'm just going to tell you 3 here, and there's more than that out there, and if you want to let us know what they are as well, the ones I haven't mentioned, put them in the comments down below. So you take the Bone-Tied Shrieker, which is the endless spell, which is basically like the 3 or 4 skulls, I think it is, with the big like crystal in the middle. Basically, you take that, it gives you a +1 to hit if enemy units are within 12 inches of it, but also the enemy is -1 to their bravery. So already that's -2. Take some Morgasts as well, that's -3, because they give a -1 as well. And like I said, you can stack it more, but that's like by stacking it by not even really trying too hard. So at first when I looked at it, and it's like, it's not that great. I mean, I'll be honest with you, it's not the best ability out of all these sub-allegiances, but it's not useless. So then the next one we have is the Commandability. So this is Counter Strike. So at a power range signal, the Mortis Praetorians ready their weapons in preparation for an enemy assault. You can use this Commandability at the end of an enemy charge phase. If you do so, pick one enemy Mortis Praetorian unit that either has the Hecatos keyword or is wholly within 6 inches of a friendly Mortec Hecatos, or is wholly within 12 inches of a friendly Mortis Praetorian hero. Until the end of that turn, you can reroll hit rolls for attacks made by that unit that target an enemy unit that made a charge move in the same turn. So usually, how Age of Sigmar is at the moment, it kind of feels a bit like chess, in the terms of if you go to attack an enemy unit or chess piece, we're using that as the analogy, you just simply remove it from the board. And it kind of feels like that in Age of Sigmar at the moment, so durability doesn't really seem to be able to stand up to much. However, the Ossiarch Bonereapers is one of the most durable armies out there, especially if you look at things like Mortec Guard. As long as the enemy's not really chucking too many more wounds at you, they can be very, very survivable, where if the enemy charges you, they attack you, they don't really have any more wound output. Chances are with your reroll saves for your shields, there's going to be quite a lot of your Mortec Guard left if you took a big block of them to make the benefit of this ability. It would be nice if you could use it in the combat phase though, instead of the end of the enemy charge phase, so then you know if the enemy has wiped you out or not, and then you can use it more accordingly, but there's more risk, so you know you just have to weigh up your options really. And then the command trait you're going to get for the Mortis Praetorian. So a Mortis Praetorian General must have this command trait instead of one listed on page 74. So they are like the command traits that we mentioned in the Allegiance Ability video, where we went through the command traits, artifacts, spell laws, and then your Allegiance Abilities. So go check out that one if you want more details there. But the one you get in the Mortis Praetorians is Catacross's Chosen. So the commander of the Mortis Praetorians are handpicked by Catacross and chosen for their supreme mastery of the battlefield arts. Once per battle, at the start of your hero phase, if this general is on the battlefield, you can receive D3 additional Relentless Discipline points. That's actually really quite good. D3 Relentless Discipline points, it's almost like D3 command points. It's practically how it works in the Ossiarch Bonereapers, but bear in mind they're not maybe as good as command points because you don't last for the rest of the game. They would just last for your battle round that you're currently on. So if you've already got quite a few, Relentless Discipline points, and you're on the second half of a battle round, don't waste it. You can save it, but for someone who's actually got practice for this, all I can say is don't save it too long, because chances are, if things go really bad and you really need the Relentless Discipline points, at that point you may not have enough units on the board to make the most out of those points. But bear in mind, just one Relentless Discipline point can make a unit go an extra 3 inches. So I've had it where Liege Cavaliers, for example, tend to last quite a long way throughout the game, unless the enemy specifically targets them, because they've got that free up save and they're pretty survivable. And then suddenly, when it gets to turn 4 or 5, it's all about movement. And if you could get that Liege Cavaliers to the enemy objective and wipe out that weak defended unit on that objective, then that extra 3 to movement can really make a huge difference. And then you use another Relentless Discipline point to give himself like an extra attack for his own command ability. And then you can use another one for, maybe something else going on in the battlefield. But D3 is good. So then the Artifact of Power we've got, so it says the first Mortis Praetorian hero to receive an Artifact of Power must be given the Artificer's Blade. So the Artificer's Blade, so this master crafted weapon can slice through any armour with ease. Pick one of the bearer's melee weapons, change the rend characteristic of that to -3. So again, I'll just tell you how it works for Ossiarch Bonereapers at the current moment in time. I said this in the last video as well. This artifact is only going to go onto a Liege Cavios, because Liege Cavioses are the only combat-orientated hero you have in your army, and not in the terms of like, oh, they will just wipe out other units that the enemy can bring to the battlefield with their combat abilities. No, it's because either they get it or you give it to one of your wizards, so one of your Mortisans. And although obviously it's not a bad thing giving one of them -3 rend or one of their attacks, but it's not exactly a good use of this artifact. You won't see the most of it, so you give it to Liege Cavios. Now his sword, that's 2 damage, which isn't bad, is now -3 rend. But if you're going like, oh, Catacross and Xantos, of course, if you are new, they are named characters, which means they're unique. So that means they cannot take a command trait or artifact, sadly. But to be honest with you, in my Ossiarch Bonereapers, I tend to always bring a Liege Cavios anyway, because it's such a useful piece to your army that I won't really have a problem with it, and I'll just give them the Artificer's Blade anyway, so I'm not going to really feel like it's a hindrance or attacks. And now we are going to move on to the second sub-legions we're going to go through, which is going to be the Petrifex Elite. So, fashioned from ancient skeletons excavated from the bedrock of the realms, the Petrifex Elite are war constructs made of fossilized bone. The vast majority of them are massive in construction, go into war as towering statues brought to life. The dark, dense bone of these giants is proof against any but the most finely crafted blade. And then going into the rules, and I can't go any further without saying that this Petrifex Elite is an army that was too powerful when it came out. So one of the rules we'll read here, the first one I'm going to go into, has been changed, and I'll mention that when I go into it. But what I will say is that the Petrifex Elite, although they got a nerf, they are still good, and it's not like, oh, they're no longer playable. Basically, when they first came out, they were far too powerful, and now they've been brought back up to a pace that fits them in line with the rest of the sub-allegiances in the book, is what I would say. So the first ability we have got is Unstoppable Juggernaut. So these grim warriors are made from petrified bone, granting them exceptional resilience to physical attacks. So this gives you re-roll save rolls of 1 for your entire army. Ignore what it says here, you'll be able to see it on the screen, so I've just taken a picture from my book and put it on the screen where it says add 1 to save rolls for attacks that target Petrifex Elite units. You can see why that was really too strong, and that's why it got changed. So ignore that, it's reroll 1s to save. And you may be going, oh, my Mortis Guard can already reroll their save rolls in the combat phase, and my, I don't know, Necropolis Stalkers can already reroll save rolls if they wish in the combat phase, if they want that to be their thing, their stance, whatever you want to call it. But realistically, after you think about that for a little while, the meta at the moment is so heavily focused around shooting that your Mortis Guard that reroll their saves in the combat phase, which is great, against a lot of the armies out there, it's not going to do them any good because they're going to shoot you to pieces before the combat phase. So that reroll 1s to save is really good. And you may just go like, I'm going to go for like all-out defense or something like that, which is, you know, the generic command ability we get to reroll 1s to save in the shooting phase or the combat phase. Yeah, as Ossiarch Bonereapers, remember, you can't use those standard command abilities, and you can say, well, I'll do a Mystic Shield. Yeah, you can do a Mystic Shield. But unless you take like Nagash or Arcan, you can't really spam Mystic Shield, and if you did, it's a bit of a waste. I will say, if you're taking Nagash and he's got his command ability to let you reroll save rolls of 1 to your entire army, then yeah, maybe not taking Petrifex Elite, okay? Like, that's like an exception. But so I still think it's good. And then we've got the command ability, which is a bludgeon. So Petrifex Elite warriors are capable of delivering devastating blows that make a mockery of shields and armor. You can use this command ability in a combat phase. If you do so, pick one friendly Petrifex Elite unit that either has the Hecatos keyword, or is wholly within 6 inches of a friendly Hecatos, or is wholly within 12 inches of a friendly Petrifex Elite hero in that combat phase. Improve the rend characteristic of melee weapons used by that unit by 1. You cannot pick the same unit to benefit from this command ability more than once per phase. That makes complete sense, otherwise you'd be able to stack it to oblivion. And what I would say here is, again, even just Mortec Guard, which when I talk about Mortec Guard, I'll go in more detail about this, but when you look at things in Ossiarch Bonereapers and you go, I want Mortec Guard for my defensive unit and then I need to have an offensive unit. Trust me, Mortec Guard are more than capable of being defensive and offensive. But what I will say with them, even just giving them now -2 rend with the swords, and if you went spears for some reason, which I wouldn't recommend, you then have -1. So like you can do things there. Even if you, like a nice example as well, if you go like the Cavaliers Death Riders, that means that the horses now have -1 and then the riders have -2, which is good. And then you've got things like giving it to your Necropolis Stalkers, which if they want to give themselves +1 damage and +1 rend for that combat phase with their stance, then they now improve their rend characteristic by 2, which can be insane. You can give it to your Morgasts as well, so now they are going to be -3 rend, so there's lots of good use where this could really come into use. And yeah, it's only that one combat phase, but again, that's how a lot of these command abilities work for the Ossiarch Bonereapers, because obviously they can generate quite a lot of Relentless Discipline points. So then the command trait you're going to get is a Petrifex Elite general must be given this command trait instead of one listed on page 74. So the Mighty Artisan. So the fossilized bone from which this general was formed is supernaturally hard. Add 2 to the general's wounds characteristic. That's really quite good, because now it means your Liege Cavios has got 9 wounds, which is pretty damn good. And even if you give it to one of your wizards and stuff instead, now they've probably got, what, 7 wounds at least. So that has got good use to it, especially if you pair it up with their artifact power, which means the first Petrifex Elite hero to receive an artifact of power must be given the God Bone armor. So this prized armor was made by a master Petrifex Elite Bonereapers from the remnants of a mythical god beast. The first wound allocated to the bearer in each phase is negated. So that can be very useful, like I said, paired with that extra +2. Bear in mind it says wound and not wound and mortal wounds as well, so it doesn't ignore those, but he ignores them on a 6 anyway. So can be used there, and it just makes you more survivable. Bear in mind your reroll and save rolls are 1 for this guy at least. So yeah, I think that pairs that really well, and just really feels like it plays well into their like hard to break defensive nature for the Petrifex Elite, but then they can be very aggressive with that extra -1 rend. So Petrifex Elite is one of my personal favourites, and is also how my Ossiarch Bonereapers are painted up, I would say. Like, so the bone for my like death basically, and my Morgasts and Dread Abyssals, which like the Mortox ride, those like skeletal dog dragon type things, Manfred, Neferata, and Arcane ride. I've always done like grey blacky bone, so that's how I was going to paint up the Ossiarch Bonereapers I had, because they are constructs as well, like how I've done my Morgasts in the past and stuff. So that's what I was going to go with. And then it turns out that my colour scheme is very similar to the Petrifex Elite as well, which was cool, because I like these guys, I like their lore, I like their rules, still really like their rules like I already mentioned, and it fits the colour scheme, which is quite nice. A little bit different here and there, but mainly fits the colour scheme. So yeah, that's quite nice. And yeah, so then moving on to the next one, which is the Staniac Lords. I think I pronounced that right. If I haven't, please forgive me. So, where the Staniac Lords ride, they leave glory trails behind them, with a far greater proportion of cavalry in their ranks than any other Ossiarch Legion. They are known for their devastating mounted assaults. Those they slay are swiftly repurposed to reinforce their numbers. For in fresh bone can be found a desperate and bloody vigour. And we then move on to their abilities. Now I have to say that the Staniac Lords, and you'll hear me say this with a lot of these sub-legions, if not all of them, is that I really like them, because they really give different ways to play styles for the Ossiarch Bonereapers. And when they said that this is quite like a cavalry base, a fast one, it wasn't joking, because the first ability we're going to get is Equimortal. I don't think that's how it's pronounced, but that is what we're going to go with, because I know the ability, but I don't know how it's pronounced. But anyway, so the steeds ridden by the Staniac Lords are carefully crafted to be the fastest of their kind. Staniac Lord units can run and still charge later in the same turn, which is fantastic. Obviously, but any unit in this army, but one that obviously springs to mind and, very narratively springs to mind is the Cavaliers Death Riders. So again, your skeleton cavalry essentially, because they already move 12, which is really fast. Obviously not, eels or anything like that, but pretty fast for a cavalry unit. Quite a lot of the cavalry in the game moves like 10 inches, so 12 is good. And then they can +3 to their movement through the Ossiarch Bonereapers Commandability they get from their Allegiance ability. And then that means that they move in 15, and then they can run. Now, you can't make the run in auto 6 because you can't use the generic command abilities. But let's just say the averages are 3. Because of the banner in your unit, you get +1 to run and charge rolls. So that 3, which like I said on the ban average, turns into a 4. So now you are moving 19 inches before you charge. Which, let's say the enemy deploys 24 inches away from you, that's not particularly bad. Now, I'm not saying the best thing to do is just run all your cavalry and do an alpha charge, because that's clearly not always the best thing to do. But it just goes to show that, like say, you go 19, and then let's say you charge, the lowest you can charge is 2. But then you get +1 from your banner, so it's 3. So you've gone 22 inches that turn by spending 1 discipline point at that. Yeah, 1 discipline point. So that's pretty crazily mad and good. Again, it's not eels. It's not like that. It's not that crazy good. But in the realms of reality, it's pretty darn good. Also things like, even if you want to make Artisan the Black move further, bear in mind that he can move 16, and then you give him the +3 from, like I said, the Allegiance ability. So now that is 19-inch movement. You can make him run as well, which bad average, 3, let's just say. And then he's moving 22 inches before he charges. So there are loads you can do it with. Even the like Arch Cavaliers Xantos as an example, or just the normal Cavaliers as well. Even just making things that your Mortar Guard move up the board a hell of a lot quicker and make a charge. Or things if you want to get your... One that I looked at was the Morgast Harbingers, which could be an interesting way to try and charge the enemy turn 1, as there's like basically a battalion, which we'll get to in a later video, to give them extra movement, like before the game starts, I think it is. And then just something else I want to give a shout out to as well is the Necropolis Stalkers, where, for example, they move 6 inches, +3 to it as well. Not the fastest, but you can +3 with the Allegiance ability, Command ability. So then the movement 9, and then obviously they get to run and charge. But their command ability they have on their war scroll allows them to re-roll their run and charge rolls, and then they can also move over like terrain as if they could fly. So they can really make use out of this because they're re-rolling that run and charge. Now, again, it's not the fastest thing in the army, but you can make good use out of it. And again, we're going to go into more details about all the war scrolls, obviously, in unit videos, which will be coming soon. But I just wanted to give you guys a taste of how you can make this so darn effective. Especially how I always say, and loads of people always say, Age of Sigmar is a game of movement, not combat. It can be, heavily impacted by combat, shooting, magic, everything else, but it's won at the end of the day by movement. So I really like that, and I think there's loads of utility there. So then going on to the command ability we have is Rally Back. So mounted Staniac warriors are trained to swiftly disengage from combat, redress their ranks, and then charge back into the fray. So you can use command ability in your movement phase. If you do so, pick one friendly Staniac Lord unit that has a mount and is either wholly within 6 inches of a friendly Mortar Hecatos, or is wholly within 12 inches of a friendly Staniac Lord hero. That unit can retreat in that phase and still charge later in the same turn as long as it did not run. That is really, really, really good. Just bear in mind there, where you've got a buff, you can run and charge. You can't do it here because it says as long as it did not run. Now you may go, oh, maybe they just didn't really think about those abilities through. They're on the same page, like they're just one below another. So I'd hope Games Workshop did see that through. So you can't run, but just being able to retreat and charge is huge. I can tell you, for someone who's recently been playing a lot of Skaven, having the banners for my Storm Vermin and my Clan Rats being able to retreat and charge has won me many games already. And then the other thing as well is you get enemy units trying to tag you a lot in this game, so then they can try and hit you with something heavier a turn down the road. And being able to just retreat and charge is great, especially for your army that wants to be moving very fast in Staniac Lords. And then also, obviously, for later turns where you really need to get out of combat to be able to get to where the objective is, to get that one victory point more than your opponent to win and secure you victory. So, yeah, very big fan already back there for their command ability. And then the command trait is going to be a Staniac Lords General must be given this command trait instead of one listed on page 74. And it's going to be Twisted Challenge. So this warlord will often challenge an opponent to a duel they cannot hope to win. So at the start of the combat phase, you can pick one enemy hero within 3 inches of this general. Until the end of that phase, add 1 to hit rolls for attacks made by this general that target that enemy hero, but subtract 1 from hit rolls for attacks made by this general that target any other unit. It's an alright command trait, it's not the best, but it does mean that you can, basically, if you're going to fight a certain hero, you're not going to go, oh, I want to split my attacks, you just want to kill that enemy hero, it is going to help you. You're just going to add 1 to your hit rolls, which can be useful, and bear in mind this is going to be on a Liege Cavaliers. But bear in mind there's quite a few ways to get pluses to hit in this army already. And then we've got the Artifact of Power, which is the first Staniac Lord Liege to receive an Artifact of Power must be given the Nadrid bound mount. So that is why I always read the little text under it, because it isn't just the same as the Staniac Lord hero to first receive an artifact must be given this. It can be specific, which means a liege. So that is going to be basically your Liege Cavaliers at the end of the day who's eligible to take an artifact. So that means if you want to forsake all Liege Cavaliers, which I wouldn't suggest to do in Staniac Lords, it means you won't be forced into taking this artifact. But the Liege Cavaliers, so what it's going to give you is the Nadrid bound mount. So the steed ridden by the Liege is imbued with the terrible power of the Nadrir, which means you can roll D3 extra dice when this Liege uses their unstoppable charge ability. Let me just tell you about this unstoppable charge ability. It's not particularly good, as I'll just tell you. Basically, how it works is when you finish a charge, keep a track to see what your charge roll was. Pick an enemy unit, I think it's within 1 inch. We can get to that in a later video, like I said, to find out specific details. But anyway, you roll a number of dice for what your charge roll was, and then for any 6s, the enemy unit takes. Now that's not terrible, you know, like it's a standard thing where all ogre units get, and then the monsters get a better version of it. But it's just like, it's a nice ability to have on his war scroll, like saying, oh, okay, I might do a couple more wings, maybe. But the fact that the artifact then gives you D3 extra dice, even if it was 3 extra dice, that's still on average not going to do a mortal wound. Why can't it be D3 mortal wounds on a 2-up or something? Or why can't it just be 3 extra dice? Because like I said, 3 extra dice aren't going to give you a guaranteed mortal wound. So yeah, I really think that artifact is really, really poor. The command trait's a lot better than that artifact. It's one of the worst artifacts I think we've got here for the sub-allegiances, which, like I said, being completely honest, and is really disappointing because they make it sound like, oh, his mount is really good and really strong. What can it do? Maybe a mortal wound on a D3 extra. So try and do some maths hammer, which I'm not great at, but D3 extra dice means that you need to get a 6 with those dice to do the mortal wound. So if you get 3 dice, you roll that D3, you get 3 extra dice, then on a 50-50 you may do a mortal wound to the enemy. Like, it's just really, really poor, and you have to have made a charge. So yeah, it's really, really crap in my honest opinion. But apart from that, I do really like it, particularly just for the run, and you can still charge as well. That is the main thing you're going to get out of this, but it is really good within itself. It can practically win your games, and also the rally back ability to be able to retreat and charge just works so well as well in the army, especially how you can retreat, you can do your extra 3 inches to your movement as well, and then charge, obviously. So yeah, it works really nicely. And then the next one we've got is the Ivory Host. So the Ivory Host are outwardly the most magnificent of all the Ossiarch. Their polished cream bone, a startling counterpoint to their golden armour and lustrous amber soul trap gems. Yet their macabre glory hides a howling, snarling need to kill. When wounded, they fight like rabid animals to swiftly overcome even the largest foes. And then when we go into the rules of these guys, we have got the first one, which is obviously their ability, which is going to be Simmering Rage. So the Ivory Host harbour a deep-seated rage that can explode into berserk violence. At the start of the combat phase, each friendly Ivory Host unit that is within 6 inches of a friendly Ivory Host model that currently has any wounds allocated to it becomes subject to rage. Until the end of that phase, add 1 to hit rolls for attacks made by a unit that is subject to rage, but subtract 1 from save rolls for attacks that target a unit that is subject to rage. So you can see it's a double-edged sword here. Again, it means things like your Mortec Guard and stuff aren't just going to get it inherently themselves. They need to make sure that they're in range of something that's got multi-wounds basically and has taken a wound. But things like your Stalkers really sort of shine here, and I really feel like the Ivory Host, it would be lovely if things like your Necropolis Stalkers or your Mortis Guard, as an example, became battle line in the Ivory Host. We've seen that in other sub-allegiances that, you know, certain models become battle line, and I think it just would have been really nice here. As the Ossiarch Bonereapers, you only have access to 2 battle line, which are the horses, the Cavaliers Death Riders, and then your skeleton infantry, the Mortec Guard. It would be really nice if there was like a third option here, because when you've got to take, even if you just want to go minimum battle line, and you're looking at 3 units of 10 Mortec Guard, not saying they're not worth the points, but that's already 390 points for like your required battle line. And if you really wanted to go all in Stalkers, it'd be nice if there was a way to do it, but unfortunately you can't. But this is why I say it really shines to Stalkers, because they have got that multi-wounds, but they've got 4 wounds apiece, and their main attacks hit on 3s, but their specialist weapon hits on a 4. So if you've got the Bone-Tie Shrieker as well, you can make the special weapon now hit on 2s, but that would negate, you know, obviously the extra +1 for the normal swords you've got for those Necropolis Stalkers. But it means that you don't have to rely on having the Bone-Tie Shrieker, that endless spell we talked about for the +1 to hit. You can reliably get it here, because if you're playing against, if you've gone quite light on magic, shall we say, and you haven't got Arcan or anything like that, and the enemy's got maybe even a +2 or +3 to unbind, it's not uncommon out there, then that means that you're not really going to get those spells off. But with this, the enemy can't stop you getting that +1 to hit. So this army, and I've already said this and explained it, that the fact that you've got so many ways to get pluses to hit and to improve your hit rolls, but your wound rolls is really hard unless you go Mortis Praetorians. That means that you don't want to stack it too much, but at the end of the day, you can't guarantee getting these stacks off, so this is just another way to try and ensure it. The enemy can't really stop it unless they get really technical, trying to wipe out your models so there's no wounds left remaining on them, so they don't benefit from it. But the subtract 1 from save rolls, it is bad, it's a double-edged sword, but we're going to just try and counter that now when we move on to the Commandability. So, the Commandability is Temper Fury. So, the commanders of the Ivory Host can order their minions to control their rage. You can use this Commandability in the combat phase. If you do so, pick 1 friendly Ivory Host unit that is subject to rage and either has the Hecatos keyword or includes a Mortec Hecatos, or is wholly within 12 inches of a friendly Ivory Host hero. In that phase, do not subtract 1 from save rolls for attacks that target that unit because of its rage, but still add 1 to hit rolls for attacks made by that unit. So it's the best of both worlds, basically. You're just double-edged sword, cutting off one of the ends and then using that sword as a weapon yourself. So I do like it here. If they didn't have a way to counter that, I wouldn't like the Ivory Host, because it just feels... So your main thing is good, but bad, and probably not worth the trade-off. But as we've talked about, there are ways to get quite a few discipline points in your army. I mean, it's obviously not guaranteed, but there are ways to just go, like, I don't know, take 2 Liege Cavaliers, and even if you just take, like, Arcan the Black, which is something I've done, that's 3 heroes that turns into a guaranteed 5 discipline points you're going to get at the start of each battle round if you've got them on the table before you roll for anything else. So, yeah, I do like that, and... yeah, you really need to stop that -1 going off, because it will just be a massive hindrance. Something like also Cavaliers Death Riders are a good shout here, because they've got a nice 3 wounds as well, so they're pretty survivable. And the extra 1 to hit would be very nice, because like I said, that Bone-Tie Shrieker, I've always mentioned it as an easy way to get +1 to hit, and if you stack it too much, then what's the point? But you can't guarantee getting it off, and it hasn't got the biggest range in the world. for enemy units to be effective for it and for you to get that +1 to hit, so you can't always rely on it, so it's always good to get that extra +1 to hit from somewhere else. So then moving on to the command trait, an Ivory Host General must have this command trait instead of one listed on page 74. And we've got Scrimshard Savage, I believe it's pronounced. So at first cultured and refined, as the battle progresses, this general becomes increasingly savage. So in each of your hero phases, roll a dice for this general on a 5+, add 1 to the attack characteristics of melee weapons used by this general for the rest of the battle. So obviously, like I mentioned before, you want to make the most of this. This is going on simply a Liege Cavaliers at this moment in time. There's no one else really you would give it to. So I think that's good. I mean, it's on a 5+. Is this the best command trait in the world? No, it's not. But it's not too bad. It's not as ridiculously bad as, like, on a 6 you get an extra attack. So, like, on a 5, it isn't bad. And then when we go on to the artifacts, so the first Ivory Host hero to receive an artifact of power must be given a Beast Bone Blade. So this bone forged weapon thrums with bestial savage energy of Gur. So pick one of the bearer's melee weapons, add 1 to the attack characteristics of that weapon. So because you're adding 1 already, that now means he's got 4 attacks with that blade that do 2 damage each. And then chances are, well, throughout the game, on the average, each one of your hero phases, so you'll probably get it twice, let's just say. And then that means that at some point towards the end of the game, because like I said, these guys can last a while, the Liege Cavaliers is, you could be on something like 6 attacks with that weapon. Now, that's probably not going to win you in the game on its own, but it's nice. It makes him into a beat stick. Again, it's not the best artifact in the world, but it's not as bad as, shall we say, the artifact of the Nadrid Bound Mount, which was from the Staniac Lords that we just looked at before this one. So the Ivory Host, I personally really like it. I think it's really cool in the lore as well, because you have things like all the bones are from big beasts and everything from the realm of Gur, so they've been sort of, not corrupted, but sort of just like moulded into that bestial energy of the realm of beasts being Gur, which I think is cool, because it breaks the mould a little bit. The Ossiarch Bonereapers of being, you know, not too much will to themselves. I know we went over and they've got, you know, more willpower than a lot of the undead, but they're all very ordered, very clean, here to do one job. They don't divert from the mission, and they're very, like, can be very defensive, formation, everything like that. But then these guys can go into bestial rage in the middle of the battle, which I think is quite cool. And then moving on to the next one, which we're going to look at, it's going to be the Null, which I actually think is very relevant in the current meta we have in Age of Sigmar. So a little bit of the lore. So the Null are magical creatures, but they have been fashioned in such a way that they are extremely resistant to baleful forces. Fireballs hurled into their ranks detonate with no more effect than a summer's breeze. Death hexes merely cause them to glow a little brighter, and magical storms slow their progress not at all. And this is also like Arcan's Legion, and again we'll go like more lore in a later video for this. So going into the abilities, we got the Eldritch Nulls, which means forge the fight in the parts of the realms most saturated with magic. The Null have an innate resistance to arcane forces. Each time a friendly Null unit is affected by a spell or an endless spell, you can roll a dice. If you do so on a 5+, ignore the effects of that spell or endless spell on that unit. So firstly, just quickly mention, you can roll. So if you're putting a spell from one of your guys onto one of your units, you're not having to roll, and it's not one of those cases where you could basically avoid getting your own benefit. It's only going to be used against enemy magic, which is huge. If you go against a Lord Croak, for example, in Seraphon, he can just decimate your army with just constant mortal wounds by magic. These guys can ignore it on a 5+, and there's many examples where magic is so strong. You know, Disciples of Zeech is another one, of course, and there's many other ones out there, Techless, etc. So will be very useful against those things, and we're going to go into how we can make that better now, which is the Commandability, which is Hold Fast. So the Null can stand firm even when lashed by a howling gale of arcane power. You can use this command ability before you use the Eldritch Null's ability for a unit that either has the Hectos keyword, or is wholly within 6 inches or a friendly Mortec Hectos, or is wholly within 12 inches or a friendly Null hero. That unit is not affected by that spell or endless spell on a 2+ instead of a 5+. I've used this against Lord Croak only a little bit. I had like a game, we couldn't finish it all because we ran out of time, but we played through it and the opponent had Lord Croak, and the player was just getting annoyed because he wasn't getting to do everything he wanted to do, which was unusual for a Seraphon player. So because I was just stopping stuff on a 2-up. No, I didn't stop everything. I rolled a couple of 1s and stuff. But just by having all those relentless discipline points to be able to stop them on a 2-up was absolutely huge, and made the people who are always reliant on, let's just say, debuffing you or doing loads of damage to you through magic, like we just mentioned, it makes them have to change their game plan, and that's something that really puts them on an edge where they're like, now I'm not really too sure what to do. So yeah, the Null Myriad, definitely really good for the meta at the moment, and that's just the ability and the Commandability. We haven't got to the command tree and the artifact yet, so let's do that now. So a Null Myriad general must be given this command trait instead of one listed on page 74. So unsettling and sinister. This general is an amantha to living creatures, making them recoil in horror. So subtract 1 from hit rolls for attacks made with melee weapons that target this general. In addition, subtract 1 from the bravery characteristics of enemy units while they are within 3 inches of this general. So we talked about how we can stack bravery in this army if you like to debuff the enemy. But also just subtracting 1 from hit rolls is very good. I've had it in... It didn't really come in too much when I tried these guys out in that game. But when I've had it in other armies, just -1 to hit, and I think, should I give my guy that command trait? Is that good? It makes a huge difference. Absolutely huge. So yeah, that's very nice there. Is it the best command trait at the end of the day? No, but it's not a bad one as well. Because when you look at these sub-allegiances, you're not always going to expect to get the best command trait. You just basically get given what you're given really at that point, and you just have to take it and accept it. So yeah, that's not bad. And then the artifact of power. So the first Null Myriad hero to receive an artifact of power must be given a baleful blade. So, blows struck by this immical weapon cannot be stopped by armor or magical wards. Pick one of the bearer's melee weapons, again, Liege Caveat, his sword. Do not make save rolls for attacks made with that weapon, and wounds inflicted by the weapon cannot be negated when they are allocated to a model. The wounds can be healed later in the battle. So that's fine, you can heal as normal. But I really like this artifact. Again, it's not like the best artifact in the world, but I personally really like it because I go against things like Phoenix Guard a lot, or I go against things like Stonehorns or Doors of Cain, or anything really out there, Lord Croak, that just ignores things on, 4s, 5s up, what Teclis can do for the Lumineth by just making that big bubble or protection. And then suddenly you go, no saving, they're dead. And it's not, again, you put on Liege Caveat, who isn't bad, but he's not, just going to charge in there like Archaon and just decimate everything. But just the fact that you can say to your opponent, oh no, you don't get to save against that. It's like, yeah, but I have a 3-up save or something. It's like, no, I don't care. No save for you. And I say, okay, I'll do my after save. And I thought, no, none of that for you either. Lovely. Absolutely lovely. It'd be really great to annoy your opponent. And I think that's really cool. So the Null Myriad I am a big fan of. And because I like to run Arcan a lot in my Ossiarch Bonereapers, it just fits narratively as well, as that is his Legion. So yeah, massive fan of that. And then we have the Crematorians, which is the last one to look at. And this is something that really breaks the mold from the normal Ossiarch Bonereapers, and we'll get to that in the lore just now. So, a legion of walking furnaces. The Crematorians burn with dark magic. They are sent against those cities and strongholds that Nagash would see removed from existence. They are far from eternal, their existence brief but spectacular. Those that strike them down soon find this out as they are consumed in an explosion of balefire. And we'll get to exactly what that means now. So, the ability, which is Immolation. Crematorian warriors are likely to detonate if they are cut down by an opponent. Roll a dice each time a friendly Crematorian model is slain by an attack made with a melee weapon before the slain model is removed from play. Add 1 to the roll if the slain model is a hero or monster. On a 5+, pick one enemy unit within 3 inches of the slain model. That unit suffers 1 mortal wound. So something just to mention there, that it is when it's slayed with a melee weapon. So if it's something like shooting or something like that, it's not going to trigger. But from a melee weapon, it will. And a 3-inch range is big, because when I first read this, I was presuming it was going to be a 1-inch range. No. So when I went against, I think the best example is Idoneth Deepkin. And they charged a lot of Ishling Guard into me, which are famous to either have like a 3-up save reroll in 1, unrendable, or maybe even a 2-up save reroll in 1, unrendable. And then when this great player attacked me with his Ishlin, he did so much damage to me that in the end he just ended up doing more mortal wounds to himself. And he did more damage to himself that way than me doing damage to him. And it worked out really, really nicely. Because also I can pick and choose what units took the mortal wounds. Because obviously I can remove the models. But then I can also just remove the models where I want to be able to pick what unit's going to suffer the mortal wounds by being within 3 inches. And I can't guarantee, you know, on a 5-up, but if he kills just like 10 Mortec guard with hit them really hard, I go, right, boom. That could be, I think like on average, I was probably doing like 4 mortal wounds every time he killed 10. And I know that's not exactly the average, but that's what I was rolling. So it worked out really nicely. Also, you have things like a Harvester as well. So that is the big corpse cart thing called the Gothsar Harvester that we'll do a video on shortly. And that can bring back your models if they are slain, basically. So basically, I was dying, blowing up, then bringing myself back. And when it worked really well, some armies just didn't know what to do against it. And it was just really, really strong and defensive. So I really liked it for that purposes. And then the commandability is Liverers of Cities. So fortifications are little use against this fiery legion. You can use this commandability in the combat phase. If you do so, pick one friendly Crematorians unit that either has the Hecatos keyword, or is wholly within 6 inches of a friendly Hecatos, or is wholly within 12 inches of a friendly Crematorians hero. Do not apply the cover save modifier to save rolls for attacks made with melee weapons by that Crematorians unit in that combat phase. So basically, when you're in cover, if you've got, I believe it's less than 8 wounds and you're not a monster, or you haven't run or charged, I think it's run as well, honor to a train feature, basically you get cover, which means that if your whole like model's bases or the unit's bases wholly on that train feature as well, you get +1 to your save basically. And although that's good and can be very useful, like you often find, like, I don't know, an enemy wizard's just on cover because it gives them that +1 to save. I haven't really found this commandability to be that useful because I haven't really been in much circumstances where I need to do it. But I imagine where it could be useful if you are playing on obviously a lot of terrain on a board, let's just say, and the enemy is really using cover to their advantage. You've got this in the bag, but it's not the best commandability here. And then going on to the command trait. So Crematorians General must be given this command trait instead of one listed on page 74, which is Wrathful Anger. So this general is a blazing avatar of Nagash's Wrath. If this general is slain, add 2 to the Immortus dice roll instead of 1. And if the roll is successful, inflict D3 mortal wounds on the enemy unit instead of 1. So it's alright. You basically just got a good chance of doing D3 mortal wounds when you die. Well, it isn't bad, but it's not the best. And then the Artifact of Power. So the first Crematorian hero to receive an Artifact of Power must be given a Searing Blade. And the Searing Blade is the surface of this ebon blade is laced with arcane filigrees, I think that is, that burn red hot. So pick one of the bearer's melee weapons, add 1 to the damage characteristic of that weapon. I like that. Now your blade for your Liege Cavios is doing 3 damage instead of 2. So yeah, that is nice. It's not bad there. I'd rather that than an extra attack. And that is where we are. So we have gone through the 6 sub-allegiances that are currently available for the Ossiarch Bonereapers. And what are my favourite out of all these? I think, honestly, they all have play. If I was to be completely honest with you, I'd say probably the Ivory Host is the weakest. And that's just because it's nice, but the biggest thing it adds to you is getting that +1 to hit, which, like I've already mentioned, you can get in other ways in this army. You can't guarantee you're going to get it in other ways, but because you can, the best benefit you'll get for the Ivory Coast can be kind of negated, like I've already mentioned. But then if we were to go, what I think is the best, I think they're just great for different situations. Like, honestly, if you knew like what your opponent was bringing every time, I don't know, you just know they're going to get a, I don't know, let's say bring Seraphon, they're probably going to go Starborn. I'm going to take Null Murad because it's great to counter that. Or if you go, I need to really get to the enemy really fast before they can hit me so much, Staniac Lords will be good because you'll be fast. And if you're like, the enemy is going to have a lot of, how shall we say, heroes at the back that you want to squash with catapults or something, go Mortis Praetorians, take the Arch Xantos, take him, he can reroll once to wound, which is great for your catapults and stuff like that. And then Petrifex Elite obviously is good for saving against enemy shooting, and it's good for the extra rend you get. And then you've got Crematorians, which are great if the enemy are very hard to kill in terms of their saves are great. Like I said, Ishling Guard was a perfect example there, and you expect it just to get charged and hit really, really hard. And yeah, like they're great for different situations. I honestly think, for myself, in the current meta, what I'm used to playing against, probably Null Myriad is something I'd like to take more. Again, it depends what your meta is, but that's because I go against a lot of like enemy magic and stuff like that. So that's what I like, but I can really see how they could all have play, in my complete honest opinion, which makes this very exciting. As the last sub-legions I read through for a video on the channel was how to start collecting Sylvaneth, which when I read through them, apart from like Winterleaf, I believe it was called, that sub-legions, the others just don't sing to me, and they don't seem particularly interesting. Whereas the ones in here, I really like their different playstyles, and I think as soon as they fix Petrifex Elite, which was the auto-take sub-allegiance, as soon as they fixed it, it now just suddenly made all the other sub-allegiance viable, and they're not bad. Like, so it really worked out well, and just gives me loads of interesting ways to play the same models I have in my army, and to really make the most out of them. And with that is the end of this video. So I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts on the Ossiarch Bonereapers, and in particular their sub-allegiances, in the comments of this video. Is there anything that you agreed with or disagreed with? Let me know down below, and why as well. And if you did enjoy the video, please absolutely smash that like button, the subscribe button, and the bell notification. Just 3 little clicks and go a huge way to helping the channel. I've noticed a lot of you people have been subscribing lately and liking and commenting and everything else, and it's really helping. It doesn't go unnoticed. I'm hugely appreciative of it, and generally it just helps out the channel, and the more you help out the channel by doing free things like that, I can continue to make better videos for you guys, and I know what direction you guys want me to make content for. So massive thumbs up to you. Thank you so much for that. And what I would like to say as well, if you would like to support the channel that step further, you will see a join button next to the subscribe button underneath the video, and that means you could join to become a Age of Nagash member, which means that even if you just give £1 a month or something like that, it goes a huge way into keeping my channel going. And you will find a link to my Patreon at the top of the description down below, where if you want to check that out, and you can give even just $1 a month, goes a huge way to making me being able to produce this content and to improve this content over time, and to make as much content as possible for you guys. And like I've already mentioned, if it wasn't for my YouTube and Patreon members, I wouldn't be able to do this channel. It's not just they help, they give me the reason to be able to do it. And on that note, I would like to give them another massive shout out. So that's going to be starting with my best and top supporters, which are my Morgasts, which is going to be Johnathan H, Filq, Bleed Red, and Christopher G. As I've already mentioned, guys, you're giving so much support there. Thank you so much, and please keep up the great work. It does a fantastic job to keep me going. And then my vampires, who also do a great job, is going to be Mir, Martin S, Rouse321, David A, Ronni H, Doug P, SpareBear. And then my Necromancers, which is Jacq.l, RadiationRiley, AW77, Sagas, WolfNick, Michal W, Quad, Cranky Wombat, Christopher F, Christopher C, James S, and Steve T. Thank you all so much as well for helping me keeping this channel going. But if you guys can't support anything like that, no worries at all. But if you did enjoy, like I said, like, subscribe, smash that bell notification, the little bell button, and also comment, let me know what your favourite sub-allegiance is and why. And with that, I'm just so glad that you guys came and checked out this video today. I really hope you have a good rest of your day. Remember, until next time, to stay safe, wear a mask, wear gloves, stay hygienic, so it means we can start playing Ossiarch Bonereapers again when we can. And more importantly than all of that, and very important for this video, remember until next time that Nagash is all, and all is one in Nagash.